Hey, everybody, and welcome back into the Katella Chronicles podcast with your host, Dominick Lorenz. And I'm joined again by co-host David Goodkind. David, how we doing tonight?
Doing pretty well. How about yourself? Congratulations on the recent stint, by the way, being back in the booth.
Oh, thank you very much. It's been a busy week, I will say for myself. I was very lucky enough to fill in the California League for minor league baseball, low A level for the Arizona Diamondbacks affiliate, the Visalia Rawhide. Their broadcaster, Jill Guerin, was out. She was at their AAA facility doing some TV color work, and she gave me a call and said, "Hey, do you want to fill in for 3 days?" And I said, "Where do I got to be?" She said, "Can you be at San Bernardino, home of the Angels farm system?" I said, "I'll be there shortly." So it was a fun 3 days. Rawhide won 2 of 3 from the Inland Empire 66ers. So there's your quick little minor league report for the Angels farm system. But it was a terrific weekend and a pleasure to do it, then and hopefully again soon. You never know what can happen, but it was really great to be back in the booth. But David, it's great to be back on the podcasting waves with you, which is always nice.
Ditto.
Since we've been gone, in a sense, from the very last podcast that we did, last time we talked about the Angels' rough stretch, and then we had some positive news with the Anaheim Ducks. This time, it's all about the Angels because guess what Tuesday is? Trade Deadline Tuesday, that coveted time of the year where teams that are pretty much in consideration, if not already what looks to be clinched in the playoffs already, look to get stronger, and the teams at the bottom of the divisions look to basically give away all their assets for a lot of prospects, or sometimes you may get surprised here and there. For the Angels, they are a very interesting story, a team that is extremely struggling right now, fourth in the division, still under 500 by more than 10 games. What everybody would think they should be sellers, but who knows what Perry Manassian has up his sleeve when Tuesday afternoon comes around at 3 p.m. when the deadline sails. Before we get to the deadline, what are your initial thoughts right now quickly on what's going on with the Angels? The month of July is over. How do we take everything that happened in July, especially since the All-Star break?
Well, they're clear sellers. There's, even if they start playing better, they're basically not going to be able to lose any games if they want to make the playoffs. So that's kind of off the table. They're going to have to sell. The problem for them is they don't have too many assets to sell right now that other teams are going to want. So the Angels are in a sticky bind right now where it's just trying to maximize value of guys that are movable.
Absolutely. And, the Angels scuffled horribly going into the All-Star break. And then they come out of the All-Star break playing 3 with Atlanta, 3 with Kansas City, and they came home to play 4 against the Texas Rangers. In that time, they went 4-7 since the All-Star break. They did take 2 of 3 in Kansas City, which was the first time the Angels had a series win since the end of June when they did that at home against the Chicago White Sox. So what you thought was positivity going into this week, and they end up losing 3 of 4 to Texas. And I mentioned this right before they took on Kansas City in that first game last Monday. The Angels were entering a 26-game stretch where 16 of those 26 games were going to be against teams under 500. Those are games that you need to win. I'm not saying by doing that, the Angels are going to be right back in the thick of the playoff hunt, but at least it shows some competitiveness and shows a drive to win. And maybe you get lucky, you catch a streak, you catch some other teams streaking in the opposite direction, and maybe you're within 5 to 7 games and at least can play some meaningful baseball in September. But so far in that stretch, they win 2 of 3, but then lose 3 of 4. So right now, the Angels are 3-4 to begin that 26-game stretch. Over the next 10 games, they have 6 against Oakland and 4 against Seattle. Now, Oakland is worse than the Angels, so hopefully they can take at least 4 of 6, maybe even 5 of 6. That would be a dream. And then Seattle's going to be a dogfight, especially with what happened last time those two teams saw each other, and there was a brawl at Angel Stadium. So before we get into trade deadline stuff, what do you think about the Angels over the next 10 games? 6 with Oakland, 4 with Seattle.
The Seattle series is extra daunting. Seattle has been playing better as of late. I think their only losses in July came at the hands of the Astros. That's not bad at all. The Oakland series, like you mentioned, the Angels, to put it bluntly, are one of the worst teams in baseball this season. But there are some teams that are worse, the Royals being one of them, and maybe Oakland as well. So that could be a series where get some entertaining baseball. The Angels pick up a couple games. So it'll be a nice break from the onslaught that has been this summer. Hopefully, I don't want to jinx them going into it, but Yeah, it's just been rough. There's not a lot of positivity to say, except for, thank God Oakland's finally coming to town, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that would be the one saving grace that's going on for the Angels right now. And after this stretch, with 6 with Oakland and 4 with Seattle, they have games against the Twins, and then Seattle comes back into town again. But guess what? When August 22nd rolls around at the end of the month, the Angels have an even more daunting schedule. They have back-to-back-to-back series against Tampa, Toronto, and then they come home to take on the Yankees. So not a easy way out of the month of August, the dog days of August. If you want some positivity, if you want to beat up on the teams you should be beating, this is the time to do it. And like I said, if they win, let's say 10 of the next 10, that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to be right in the thick of it for a postseason berth, but at least it still shows that competitiveness and that drive to win, and at least hopefully play some meaningful games in September instead of basically unloading the AAA Salt Lake Bees bus at Angel Stadium for kind of what we have seen in 2021 and in the recent years past. Now, the Angels are 43-59 heading into their day off today, Monday, August the 1st. And so they will not have a game until trade deadline day. Right now, Noah Syndergaard is supposed to go for the Angels that day against Oakland A starter Frankie Montas. And both of those pitchers are rumored to be in a lot of trade discussions right now. So potentially that might not be the matchup we get on Tuesday. It could be both of them. It could be one of them. It may not be the other, or basically both of them might not even be there at that time. It could be a very last minute thing that happens for the Angels or even the Oakland A's. But the Angels are 11 games out right now. That's where they were when they started off the series last week against the Royals. So in this stretch, 3 wins, 4 losses, the Angels did not gain or did not lose ground. I feel that's pretty much very much Angels baseball over the past 5 or 6 years. You win some, you lose some, and you really don't gain or lose ground at this point in the season. I feel we're
It's a
just
lot of middling. Yeah.
We're just numb to this fact at this point right now. Hopefully there's still time for the Angels. At least I just want to see competitive baseball. The starting pitching has been really good over the past week. Syndergaard had a nice performance against the Royals, even though the offense didn't show up. Shohei Ohtani had a good start against Texas. The offense didn't show up. Some surprising pitching. Jansen Junk and Reed Detmers had phenomenal performances this week for the Angels. So the starting pitching has been pretty good over the past 7 to 10 days. It's, of course, been the offense that's been lacking. Again, same old story for the Angels. I don't think we could. Can we get even more spicier? I don't know how much more we can harp on the Angels don't have depth. The offense is lacking. I think we'd just be beating a dead horse at this point.
I think I'm so dead inside to get angry at this team. To be completely honest, I've kind of accepted the predicament that the franchise is in currently. And I'm have you ever seen The Departed?
Yes.
Okay, I feel like Matt Damon at the end of that movie when he walks into his apartment and he sees Wahlberg standing there with the gun. He's just like, okay.
This is
resigned. This is it. Yeah. That's the best way to sum up.
That's actually a perfect metaphor. Right, that's the perfect metaphor. My gosh, The Departed. But there's a meme online, the triangle, you get your hopes up, you lose it, but then you wake up the next morning and you want to hope again. And it's just kind of that everlasting circle. And hey, I give it up for the fans. I try to be an eternal optimist at all times, but there's some times where you just have to say no. That the writing's on the wall, and maybe, we saw what we saw in April and early May from the squad, and we thought postseason bound at least was the minimum that the Angels could do. But then that 14-game losing streak, Joe Maddon gets fired, the brawl with Seattle, all the suspensions, Mike Trout is getting dinged up, you name it. What hasn't been on the bingo card yet? I would love to know that answer.
It's been crazy too, because the highs have been so high.
And the lows have been so low.
And then, and you have a 14-game losing streak. It's been a really wacky season with stuff that should be so fun, but the season will not be remembered fondly. It's been really tiresome. It's been a really long season. I feel like the season's gone on for 3 years already. Realistically, not only do the Angels have to just become a completely different team tomorrow and play perfect baseball, they have to change overnight the team identity and the fundamentals and the mechanics, and everything has to change literally overnight, and they have to play perfectly. And then the other teams in front of them all have to lose. The math isn't there. It's not going to happen.
No, and right now the only thing I think that for me the optimism inside deep into my heart, again, I'm part optimist, part realist, and I can read the writing on the wall that the Angels are not making the postseason this year, barring a freaking miracle.
Yeah,
But the
miracle's the right word.
one little optimism in my mind, because like I said, I still want to see competitive baseball at the end of the day at minimum. And until that E for elimination is next to the Angels' name, mathematically and technically, I use quotations loosely, the Angels still have a chance. And I think that's like the only optimistic line right now I can use for this squad.
If I'm an Angels fan, I think the fun is you're hoping the team starts playing better so that they can play a proper spoiler as the season progresses. It would be
Yes.
fun to screw over Seattle again. Like that would be a
Oh, yes. I think they
fun
may
like
be
end to
the
the
new
season.
rival. They're the new
Yeah,
rival.
I think without doubt right now. Just whatever, all the quotes after that game, with the brawl. I think that's these two teams probably really don't like each other right
Well,
now.
and
So
especially after what happened this weekend between the Mariners
right,
and the Astros with Julio Rodriguez getting hit and going to the IL, and then their starter George Kirby throws and hits Jose Altuve in the head, first pitch of the bottom of the first today. I'm sorry, I don't want to make this and let's jump on the Mariners bandwagon and whack them a little bit, but they're getting on the Angels for being basically classless and throwing. And then this is the third instance they've done that this season.
yeah, it's a load of BS.
One team is trending in that direction, the Mariners, and the Angels were a blip in the road. I think the last time the Angels had a good solid brawl before the Mariners was what, maybe back like early 2010s, late 2000s. I remember Bobby Abreu for the Angels against Josh Beckett of the Red Sox.
Right.
Like that's like the most notable brawl that I can remember that the Angels were in. So, that could be a whole nother topic within itself. But the Angels over the next 10 days, 6 against Oakland, 4 against Seattle. I know the series in Seattle is going to be brutal, especially with those fans in Seattle. Hopefully there is no carryover from the brawl that happened at the Big A. Mike Trout is still TBD on when he will return from the cortisone injections in his back. If he can make it for that Seattle series, I expect at least 4 home runs from him because he is their papa. I'm
I
sorry.
kind of hope he's not back for that because
It
honestly,
could
what if they
spell
start throwing
trouble.
at him? Like, what
Yeah.
if they start throwing at him and he's coming off an injury? Just
Yeah. I
talk
would
about a
rather
classless organization. I would worry about that.
yeah, you might want to save Trout, save his career or save his season from being over just in case that if something wild happens, err on the side of caution. I think maybe if you're Phil Nevin, but knowing Mike Trout, he's going to be like, I want to play and I want to do what I got to do to help this team in any way.
Right.
So again, that's the power balance.
If he's healthy, he'll play.
If he's healthy, he'll play again. And that's $450 million speaking right there to you. So,
Right.
he's going to make his call whenever he wants. But regardless of that, that's where the Angels are right now as we head into August the 1st. April's done, May's done, June's done, and July is over. 4 months in the books, 2 months remaining. You're telling me there's a chance still. The elimination's not there for the Angels, but there is a deep, long, far road ahead for the Angels if they even want to get towards the final playoff spot against really good competitive teams in the American League. But what we're here for today, episode number 5, trade deadline. August 2nd, 3:00 Pacific time, the deadline will hit. That will be it. There has been some trades that have already gone down. Luis Castillo got sent to the Seattle Mariners. David Peralta goes from the Diamondbacks to the Tampa Bay Rays. And Andrew Benintendi goes from the Kansas City Royals to the New York Yankees. So 3 big trades have already happened. What could be next? I know Juan Soto's a big name. Frankie Montas is a big name. But I think the biggest name of them all is, of course, right here in Anaheim, and it's Shohei Ohtani. Rumors have been swirling for weeks now that because the Angels have been losing, he only has one more contract year before he hits the free agent market. His value is extremely high right now. He's been pitching at a dynamic level. He's been homering at a dynamic level, and his bat has been a little more consistent this year than maybe last year. He had some ebbs and flows to his game, but still, hey, a 2021 MVP type season for Shohei Ohtani. David, what if the Angels were to trade Shohei Ohtani? If I don't think it's going to happen, I'm going to preface it with that. I 100% firmly believe the Angels are not trading Shohei Ohtani by Tuesday's deadline. Going with the opposite, if they were to trade him, what kind of haul would the Angels get back? And we know it would be a dumpster fire for the front office because the fans would have everybody's head. But what kind of haul would the Angels get back?
I'm in your side of this camp. I don't think they're going to move him, but it's not going to be for a lack of trying. They're reportedly looking for 4, top prospects from whatever team they're looking for or looking to trade with. And then also some major league talent. I don't think it's a crazy ask, seeing on what we've seen with Castillo and what the rumors have been swirling around with Soto. But that being said, I don't see a team willing to meet the necessary package. He's such a generational talent. So the Angels have to ask for something crazy because they wouldn't be doing their due diligence if they weren't. That's a reasonable haul if you're like someone with Castillo with a couple of years of control left. Ohtani is going to be on his final year next year, and he's going to command a salary closer to Mike Trout. So whatever team gets him in a trade, they're going to, unless they're the Dodgers, they're going to risk losing him because the Dodgers are the only team that are consistently very cool with breaking that luxury tax. Not in the Yankees. The Yankees in this part of the century have become a bit more frugal with their money. You're looking at the Padres and the Dodgers essentially that can really afford this and take the 1-year flyer or bank on re-signing him. Other than that, it's a real gamble, and you'd have to give up the haul. You're balancing between realism and both what you want from that package and if the contract's even movable. What I end up thinking is going to happen ultimately is Artie is going to let Ohtani walk for a couple of reasons. One, you can't trade him, like we've talked about. The package that he would require back. It's just not a lot of teams are going to get up to that. And secondly, Ohtani puts butts in the seats. He makes money on promotions. Artie will take that for another year before hitting this divot, which if Ohtani leaves, is going to be pretty massive. The attendance will drop, money coming in will drop. So you're looking for an unprecedented haul. It's kind of like the trade of Mike Trout conversation all over again. Like, how do you get back in value of what you're giving up? You just you realistically can't.
Yeah, I think to sum it up in one word, the Angels in this situation with Shohei Ohtani, it's a conundrum. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right.
And, if you do it, you're going to benefit the team potentially because you do get those top prospects and maybe some major league talent, maybe lower level major league talent to kind of supplement a little bit that time span. But then if you don't do it, you're handicapping your team a little bit. But at the overall scope of the day, you may be losing fans when you trade Ohtani. You're going to create a dumpster fire in the front office, and the fans are going to be charging the gates every single day. And you can only imagine the onslaught that would come from social media. It would be suicide if the Angels traded Shohei Ohtani.
The Angels have always drawn very well. The Orange County people have always enjoyed going to Angel games. It's a nice, I remember back when I was a kid, Sports Illustrated voted the ballpark the most family friendly out of all the sports in America. So it's always a nice time, and there will always be those laid back fans looking for something to do. It's never going to get to the level of Oakland or even Tampa in terms of attendance, even if Ohtani left. But then you also have the online presence, which is frankly insane. And that's where the combativeness will really shine. So it'll be a really great character study almost of just a bipolar fan base and how they respond to a move of that kind of magnitude. One that we've never seen. The Angels have never been, at least in this century, have been sellers with big name players like they potentially are this season and going into next season. It's really sad to see it finally happen after watching so many teams elsewhere, lose their star players, their franchise players. We've never really had to deal with that here, but it's, I guess this happens to everyone at some point, and it's finally the Angels' turn.
Absolutely. And it's hard for the Angels because we had so much hope going into this season, and that hope turned into reality, as we've all mentioned and seen, in April and early May. So who thought in April and early May that this would be the situation we are in right now, where we might have to say goodbye to some key pieces? The team that jogs my memory in recent years that had to deconstruct a little bit was the Chicago Cubs. Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo
Right.
got traded last season, and that was huge. They were a part of that Cubs run that snapped the curse. They've been a fabric and a thread of the Chicago landscape, and they're gone now, and they have not come back. And the Cubs haven't been the same ever since. So looking at them and now looking at the Angels, it's a very polarizing and different vantage point looking at it now as a team and fan base where we're like, oh, it's our turn now. We got to sit back and watch craziness ensue with our name swirling in the wrong terminology at the wrong time. And that's
it's not fun at
No.
all.
Absolutely. It's a tough pill to swallow. And you can only imagine Perry Manasseh right now knowing, and after he pretty much fell on the sword and blamed himself for everything that's going on with the Angels right now, which I think was a noble move. I don't think it was 100% true, but it was a noble move by a second-year GM for the Angels. But if you look at it from the scope, and this is one idea I had thought about when it comes to Ohtani potentially being traded. Let's say he does not get traded, which I think we both think won't happen this year within the next 48 hours. I think it would just
Right.
be
Maybe the
barring
off season, it gets serious.
correct. I think barring a miracle, I'm not saying a miracle in a good way, but barring something like that, it would happen. But if we get to next season, the final year of his contract, and he's still not signed to an extension when opening day arrives, opening day 2023. If the Angels go out, make moves in the offseason, and at this point next year are competitive in the thick of it, already maybe having a wild card spot in hand, already in a good position, and they make the playoffs. I know that's a big ask, but let's say the Angels play well, get good pieces, perform, and get to the playoffs, at least get to the playoffs. Does Shohei Ohtani re-sign with the Angels?
Maybe,
the questions could get harder, I think, as time goes on.
Personally, it's of my opinion that if they don't get him an extension this offseason, he's gone, kind of regardless of what happens next season. Unless they like win the World Series or something. I think if they make the playoffs, it's still 50-50 if he stays or goes. I also personally don't think they're going to make the playoffs next year unless Artie Moreno all of a sudden decides that the blank checkbook is actually a blank checkbook, because this team right now is constructed. They're going to lose some pitching, probably. The bullpen's got question marks. They obviously have depth issues at almost every single position. Actually, at every single position, now that I think about it. Because Trout's going to be out. He's going to miss time, and who knows how good the kids are in the corner outfield.
The only consistent position, I think, so far this year playing-wise has been Jared Walsh at first base.
That's it. And he's taken a step back big time this season. So,
exactly.
I mean, they have no depth at any position. So they have to address that. And then they also have to go give Ohtani a record AAV. And while being competitive, making playoffs, like they have to basically do like 7 years worth of work in one off season. And that's a hard ask for Perry.
He's getting thrown to the wolves. Let's be real.
I mean, when it comes to his comments, it's like if Artie really did give him a blank check, then yeah, he really screwed the pooch coming into the season because he didn't build any depth. But if Artie was stingy with his money where he wanted to go and all that stuff, then yeah, he fell on the sword when he didn't really have to. But if Artie really wants to win, it's like, one, you have to put money into the farm system like several years ago, and two, if you want to. If you want to win next season, I mean, you really have to go out and spend like a madman. You have to go spend with money you probably don't have. So that's just to get competitive, because the team is not competitive right now. And again, next year going into that season, they're going to be as fragile at depth. One injury like Rendon getting hurt again could undo the whole season. To get onto your point of Ohtani not signing an extension but staying with the team in free agency next season. Yeah, that's possible, but in my opinion, it's like a beanstalk sprouting up from the ground and going to the heavens possible. It's like, I really don't see this happening where the team just automatically changes everything we know about them and turns it around in one season. It's like they are who we thought they were going into next season or whatever. Like, I just don't see a 180. This team isn't. Every team goes through injuries and every team goes through slumps. They've been consistent these last few months with how bad they are, and what areas they're bad in. So when someone shows you who they are, believe them. It's not that they're scumbags. It's just they're not very good. So you need to reconstruct the lineup this offseason. You need to fix the bullpen. You need to just reset everything. And I just in that sense, you have to basically sign Ohtani while you do that, because there's still a path forward to being successful in the future. I just don't see it happening next year.
The stars need to align for this to happen, but there are so many variables to consider when it comes to the Angels. Not just who do we sign or who do we trade for to fill in these gaps, but that's just layer one. Like you said, depth, bullpen. There's so many other variables.
And you have nothing working in the minors right now to prove that you have a steady franchise moving forward.
And to that credit, anything that has come up through the minor league system has struggled. They haven't come onto the scene and jumped off the page. For the first time, we're seeing Reed Detmers do that. Ever since he came back from AAA, he's looked fantastic, like the Reed Detmers we all expected. So he gets a positive note on his side. But Joe Adell, no. Brandon Marsh, moments, but not so much. Go down the list. All these top prospects and these quality arms or bats that the Angels have had brewing are not translating to Major League Baseball that well. That's a tough factor to put into the equation as well. So there's so much to do for the Angels. There's so many opportunities and options for Shohei Ohtani. But bottom line, I think we both agree he doesn't get traded by this Tuesday's trade deadline. We'll have to see how the rest of the season goes. And then I think this offseason, and when we get to opening day next year, that's going to be, I think, the real indicator.
I think we'll know. I think we'll know by opening day what's going to happen. I think we'll have a good understanding.
If not spring training, once the media gets there and starts getting the rumor mill. So spring training, opening day. But again, do we hold anything against Artie Moreno at this point to make us surprised? We thought we needed pitching and he got Anthony Rendon. So surprise.
He needs to go just spend on everything coming up. But
go over for 1 year, be the Dodgers.
Yeah, seriously.
And just see what happens. We know what the Angels are like when you don't spend or you're conservative with your money. Let's try one season spending a buttload. And if it still doesn't work, well, then that's a bigger problem. But if it works, there's an indicator of if you spend, you will win. I'm just saying, people are saying baseball's a numbers game. A lot of people think it's stat driven. I think a lot of people know it's money driven as well. Let's be real.
And they don't have enough of a safety net in the minors to
not
spend. So you have to do this. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Ohtani gets traded this deadline. Like we both said, I really don't think it's going to happen. But if he does get moved, it is for that haul, and that at least will be some sort of ray of sunshine and something nice coming into the Angels franchise. I could desperately use some sort of excitement, especially in their farm system. So it wouldn't be the end of the world if he gets moved in the next couple of days. It would suck, and I would hate to see. I'm already gearing up, even if he doesn't get traded, to see him in a different uniform, and I'll root for him for
anywhere he goes.
He's been a class act the entire time. He's been a unicorn. He's been great to watch, great for the sport of baseball. Has really grown it. Can't say one bad thing about Shohei. So even if he went to the Dodgers, I'd root for his success. But it's gonna suck. but if they got a nice package of what the rumors have been saying that they get back, you can't fully hate it.
Here's one option before we get on to some other Angels and future potential MLB deals besides the Angels organization. What if this happened? This would be a funny scenario. I don't think it would happen, but you never know. Let's just toss something in the air and see if we can make sense of it. Angels trade Ohtani by Tuesday. Get a haul for him, 4 to 5 prospects, a couple other players, so on and so forth, whoever may be and whatever team it may be. He's there for the remainder of this season and next season, correct? And then he's a free agent.
Right.
What if in that free agency, after he's, with another team, he decides to come back and sign with the Angels? The Angels would have traded him, got their prospects, let him see greener pastures for a year plus, and then figure out a way to bring him back via free agency. Now that would be something wild to see.
That would be great. But I'm also sour on that because of Anthony Rendon's contract.
That throws a wrench into a lot of things, unfortunately.
They just can't afford a contract like Ohtani. They can go out and get star players. They can't really afford superstars, which is fine. You hope that Trout's back holds up and Anthony Rendon is healthy for the first time in his Angels career. I mean, these are obviously stuff you can't really rely on, but it'd be nice to have these, the good health, the good bill of health. And then you go get a couple nice players like the Trevor Story types and you see what you can do with that. But I just, it's so tough because Ohtani is going to get, and deservedly so, an astronomical figure in his next contract, where it could very much likely make him the highest paid athlete in the United States per year. That's not out of the realm of possibility.
Correct.
He really could garner a contract like that, not just because of his talent, but because of his marketability. I don't know if the Angels can afford him.
Again, it's hard to say. I don't know if they can. I don't think they can, but I mean, Artie Moreno is a wild
without
card.
A salary cap, you can technically afford him, but I don't think within Artie Moreno's budget over the years, if let's say, unless he completely changes his mindset overnight, he can't afford it.
Yeah. And again, Artie Moreno's a wild card. Like we said a couple years ago, we need pitching. He goes and gets Rendon. Like, you never know what you're going to get with Artie Moreno. So again, can the Angels afford Ohtani? Probably not, based on where the team is at right now. But do I hold it against Artie Moreno to go do that and pay basically upwards of $1 billion total dollars between Trout, Ohtani, and Rendon, and then just leave the rest of the team to shambles, but still get a lot of money because you have three, I would say, top 20 to top 30 players in Major League Baseball in your starting lineup when they're all healthy? Artie Moreno's a very fickle man. It's going to be an interesting storyline that goes on between now and if he stays over the next 48 hours into next season and so on and so forth. So
there was a athletic article sort of going into about Ohtani and his possibility of being traded and all that. And it kind of touched on Artie Moreno's sensitivity towards the fan base right now. He understands he's been villainized. Maybe he doesn't believe he deserves it, but that doesn't change the fact that he's been villainized. He's the villain right now of this franchise. There is an opportunity for him to rectify that, and he knows how, and it's not going to be cheap, but there's a path forward to sort of redeeming himself a little bit with this. It's just a matter of how much he's willing to spend to do that.
And this could be the straw that breaks the camel's back, in the sense of we feel we kind of know Artie Moreno a little bit. Again, we're not behind closed doors, but with the moves that he's made and the decisions he's done so far in recent years. But Shohei Ohtani could potentially be his ultimate undoing, at least his relationship with the fans by this time next year or this year or whatever. The Ohtani topic could be his undoing if he handles it poorly and does it completely in the wrong way. Again, there's so many factors from A to Z that can go into it. It's going to be a storyline that continues for a very, very long time in the near future.
It is unfortunate the fan base can be so lax, because if this was happening in New York,
oh my gosh,
I swear to God, a mob would have forced him to sell by now.
Oh my
gosh, they take that stuff so seriously. I wish we kind of did too, to a certain extent, and held there's a sizable group of this fan base holding him accountable. But man, people are still going to games and still, buying souvenirs and spending on concessions and giving him more money and rewarding him for basically running this franchise into a very new low.
Yeah,
I called it the Mariana Trench the other day. Once Ohtani goes, that's it. You're at the bottom of the ocean. In my lifetime, and I grew up with the Angels in the late '90s and the mid '90s and all that, and they weren't really great. And so when they won the World Series, it was a shock. And so, growing up, the team was never that good, but I don't remember them ever being this disappointing. I really don't.
Yeah, I think it's more so because they had such a great start to the season, and it's been really that fall off a cliff type mentality.
It's almost historic.
Yeah, I think this is the cliff that a couple years ago Max Kellerman thought Tom Brady was going to fall off of. Yeah,
right.
This is the cliff that just derailed a season It's happened in a real quick time span, but it's felt like a really long time. It's only been 2.5 months that the Angels have been going through this drought right now, but it's feeling like 2.5 years of pain right now that us fans.
In the bulk of the season, yeah.
Exactly. Now, besides Shohei Ohtani, the two names I've listed right here that could potentially be trade candidates, at least in my eyes, Noah Syndergaard's name has been thrown out a lot because he is a free agent at the end of this year, so he could be a rental for a quality playoff squad in the American League or National League. He's 5-8 with a 3.83 ERA in 15 starts this season, so he's a name that could be thrown out. And I think an under-the-radar name that could be thrown out is reliever Jaime Barria. He's been in the bullpen, partial starter his whole career with the Angels, but so far this year, I think I said earlier, Jimmy Herget was our best reliever. He's been injured. I think now it's Jaime Barria, 1-1, 2.65 ERA in 19 appearances. He's looked stellar over the past month, or even during this stretch where the Angels have been bad. He's been a bright spot out of the bullpen. Quickly, do you think both goes, one go, none of them go? What do you think between Syndergaard and potentially Barria?
Syndergaard's going to get you something from a competitive team like the Phillies or the Yankees. I think he's going to end out west. I do think he's gone. I appreciate the nice things he said about the franchise and his teammates and being out here. It sounds like he's enjoyed his time, but he's pitched well enough to get something back for a team that's really ready to make a playoff push. I think he'd be a really good fit with the Yankees, for example. So I think he's gone. Barria, I think he's not going to get much back, and he still has, like you mentioned, some pretty good value to the Angels. So I think he's gonna stick around. I think Noah Syndergaard probably is the guy to circle with all this, the most likely to be moved. Michael Lorenz could have been one of those guys, but his injuries kind of derailed that. So honestly, I think Lorenz comes back and then probably works an extension with the Angels at some point this season or off season and stays an Angel Red for the foreseeable future. But before the injury, he could have been one of the guys also moved.
Yeah, I think I agree with you 100%. Syndergaard, I think, out of the pieces to the Angels that are not named Rendon, Trout, and Ohtani, is probably the leading candidate to be moved by the Tuesday deadline at 3 p.m. He could go anywhere. I think any team that is looking for a front of the line, maybe top 3 starting pitcher. Right now, after Luis Castillo gets traded to Seattle, I think the ones on the list, it's Frankie Montas and Noah Syndergaard are probably the next 2 on the market. I know the Detroit Tigers have Tanner Skirball, the young lefty that
I've seen Jose Quintana's name thrown around a lot.
Yeah, Quintana sucked for us. Let's be fair. And now he kind of revived his career a little bit in Pittsburgh, and now he's getting trade deadline vibes. So, baseball is a funny game. Let's put it out that way. But I think I agree. Syndergaard, if the Angels do lose anybody that's not named Ohtani, Syndergaard is probably the first one off the board. And anybody after those 2 players, I don't want to say would be a shock, but I just feel the Angels are going to be standing pat and just kind of dealing with what they have and going into the offseason and taking more time instead of making a rash 48-hour judgment to try to fix whatever's going on or just deal with what is going on.
You're trying to evaluate value. What are you going to get back, right? You're not trying to trade. You're not trying to trade garbage for garbage, essentially.
Correct.
So I'm looking at like the roster. I mean, the only one off the wall trade that makes a little bit of sense is if they move Adele somewhere, but I don't see that happening. I think he's going to ride out the rest of the season with the Angels, and then they decide what to do with him in the offseason. He's already lost almost all his trade value.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's the case of it's like you're not going to move David Fletcher. No one's going to take Rendon. Trout is probably an Angel for life. You're not going to move Walsh because you have no one ready for first base. And then Taylor Ward's not going. He's probably not going anywhere.
No,
they really don't have anything that anyone. No one. They don't have anything that other teams are going to want, except for maybe Adele in a project, and you can get maybe some mid-tier prospects for him. Maybe you're not really going to get anything anymore.
The only thing I can also think of outside of the starting lineup is maybe Ryan Tepera.
Maybe. Yeah, that wouldn't shock me.
Because he signed, I believe, was that a 1-year or 2-year deal that Tepera got? Because I know Loop got 2.
I think Loop's the only one that's multiple. Him and Iglesias. I think Tepera's a 1-year deal.
Yeah, because Tepera came
don't hold
in.
me to that.
Yeah, I believe he is only a 1-year deal because he came like that week before the regular season started with Archie Bradley as well. So we'll see how that goes. Tepera could be one that gets moved if someone needs a bullpen arm, but I still think Noah Syndergaard is the top tier player on the Angels that teams are going to definitely inquire about over the next 48 hours. Now, besides the Angels taking them out of the equation, we hoped at this point we would be talking about what the Angels want to get at a trade deadline instead of what they're going to give away. But let's look at Major League Baseball as a whole. Juan Soto is the biggest name outside of Shohei Ohtani that's being discussed right now. Via reports, it looks like it's going to come down to 3 teams, and I think it's because of money and the amount of prospects that can be turned back to the Washington Nationals. And that's the Dodgers, the Padres, and the St. Louis Cardinals have entered the group chat conversation. Out of those 3 teams that have been reported, who do you think gets Juan Soto?
I think the Padres probably want him the most. And
I agree.
that may make them the most desperate. So my bet would be the Padres. It would be such a Dodgers move. But the funny thing is, every team would love to have Juan Soto, but I don't think the Dodgers really need him per se, like the way the Padres do. So I think, and you said the Cardinals were in on that also?
According to rumors, the Cardinals have entered the conversation. I don't know.
They're probably gonna their package probably gonna be centered around what they can offer at the major league level, while the Padres are gonna be like, here, take the rest of our prospects.
Yeah, take our AAA squad in El Paso.
I think it'd be good for the Padres because they've already pretty much mortgaged their future with their current roster construction. Like, they're not really built to be great in 10 years. They're built to win now. So don't half-ass it. Just go all in, I guess.
And especially because Juan Soto has 2 years remaining on a contract, and the Padres window, I would say, is that 3 to 4 year range. So it actually would line up perfectly in their win now mentality.
And they've shown their, let's say they do extend their window. They've shown they're a team that's now willing to spend. San Diego is a great city. It's a great ballpark. It's a really good fan base. They get nuts like us too. But they're entertaining and they care. And it's a good team. It's a really good team. They're a playoff team. There are worse places to wind up. So, their chance of retaining Soto, I would think, would be pretty good, actually.
And they're doing all this right now without Fernando Tatis Jr.
Right. I mean, you have Manny Machado, Hosmer when he's on. They got some dudes.
They have some dude. Jake Cronenworth's a good infielder, and
their pitching could be a little bit better. But I know they just re-upped Joe Musgrove, right?
I believe the ink is nearly dry. It's not official, but I think
they're working on it
within the next couple of weeks. But the Padres got some dudes, and I think
they're set up.
Fit in nicely.
Yeah, that would be a really powerhouse team, and you have to be if you want to compete with the Dodgers in that division, because the Dodgers will always be just star-studded and so set up, and their window is never going to close. So when you're a team like the Padres who want to be taken seriously and who want to win,
this is a move
in that kind of division, and it's built for the playoffs too. It's like, even if you don't win the division, no one's going to knock that against you because how competitive it is. Because even the Giants, I know they're having sort of a down year this year. They're up and down. They're a well-run organization, so they'll always be a factor. So even if you don't win the division, you have those guys on that team that we mentioned, Tatis, and now you add Soto to that list, Machado. It's like, I'd be terrified to go up against them. So I think for them,
quality,
it's a risk that makes so much sense. And I think they have a package that are probably more attractive to the Nationals than what the Cardinals can offer. I think the Dodgers possibly could. They could probably put together the best package. The question is if they really are into it, if they really want to go that far to do it. I think the Padres would do it in a heartbeat if they could.
I think it's the Padres to lose right now. I'd say Soto would be going to the Dodgers if this was the off season and the Dodgers had the ability to trade and extend Soto at the same time, like a sign and extension type thing. I think if that was the case for the Dodgers, they would win. But I think with it being trade deadline, middle of the season, I think it's San Diego's to lose based on their prospects. They are a top 5 prospect, ranking system right now. So they do have terrific prospects that the Nationals could utilize. Maybe within the next year or two, some infielders, some outfielders, and even some pitchers that they could utilize out there in DC.
I would love for them to go and do this. That would be
Yeah.
they're already a lot of fun when they're playing well. This would just take them to a whole new level. I would really enjoy it if they actually made that move.
Yeah, exactly. I think it does make perfect sense in that case scenario. And it keeps them competitive, as you said, against the Dodgers in a very tough NL West division.
Right.
Now, there's plenty of names that maybe haven't come up and has been as popular. But the two teams I kind of want to circle right now that have made it known that we're selling, and that's Detroit, the Tigers, and because of their recent stretch, the Boston Red Sox are now going to be in selling mode. Now, you were on this in the offseason. You really wanted Xander Bogaerts in an Angels uniform.
Right.
If the Angels were winning and in playoff and buying mode, this would have been the perfect dream of trying to go get Xander Bogaerts, I think.
That's where you package Adele. Yeah,
exactly.
That's where you make that move. By all accounts, though, it looks like the Red Sox are going to chance it with his contract. I know he's got an opt-out, I think, coming up at the end of this year. It doesn't look like they're willing to trade him right now. No. So at the end of the day, it could have been moot. But the Red Sox are done. They're in last place in the East right now. Yankees are going to win that division, and Toronto's playing a lot better, and Tampa's still a force, and the Orioles all of a sudden are winning ball games. So that would have thought. That's just that really is the division. That's the division of death out there. It's so tough. The Red Sox have dug themselves in a hole that they probably can't climb out of, and if they do, that'll be miraculous. That'll be like sort of happened with Tampa all those years ago, game 160, 162, 163, or whatever it was, with the Red Sox missing the playoffs that year. But they would have to basically become Tampa in that situation, just going to tear while everyone else lost. And I just don't see it. So it sounds like they're willing to sell. JD Martinez, his name was thrown out today. But by all accounts, it looks like they're going to try to hang on to Xander Bogaerts. From the Angels, you can't rule anything out just because how screwed up the situation is. Like, I wouldn't even mind them going and being buyers if they went and got guys who are under contract, because you need to start fixing your roster now.
Well, that's what I thought. Going into the All-Star break and coming out of the All-Star break, I said this in our last podcast. I said, if the Angels come out of this All-Star break and in their first 11 games go maybe 6-5, 7-4, maybe Perry's like, oh, maybe I can salvage something by maybe buying something and just making it look like we're going to try. And then it didn't work, or, some wacky scenario. But the Angels go 4-7 and Trout's not playing, all the rumors swirling about Ohtani. But I still don't hold it against the Angels. Who knows? We could be buyers and we could have a completely different conversation at 3:01 p.m. or maybe, I don't know, 3:15, because some deals happen after 3 o'clock once they hit the media cycle. But by 3:15, 3:30 on Tuesday, we could be having a very different conversation than what we think will happen.
That's also like what I called back to, though. You can't really trade garbage unless you want garbage back.
Yeah.
The Angels really don't have anything that anyone really wants except for the new draft picks, and I wouldn't really move any of those guys. You kind of have to hope that the last few drafts work out and go from there. So even if they want to be buyers, I don't think they can, just because they don't have the assets to get anything. Even if they move Adele at this point, he's not enough to move the needle anymore. So yeah, I don't really know what they can do beside trading Syndergaard and a couple middle pieces here and there that really have no consequence. It's just a bind that they're in that you really can't, it's quicksand, right? You can't really get out of this. Trading Syndergaard is not going to bring them a stud prospect that is going to become the next Mike Trout.
Nope.
They'll get something nice back that'll be serviceable. That's it. Like they have zero leverage going into this trade deadline. They have absolutely no leverage.
No, and we thought, like I said, back in the middle of May, we thought, ooh, this could be a trade deadline that could be sexy for the Angels. And now we're sitting here going the complete 180 and saying there is no leverage. There's nothing we really can do. And we just have to sit on our hands and just eat it. Whatever happens, we just have to roll with. And at the end of the day, how do you sum that up? That's the conundrum of the Los Angeles Angels.
For me, yeah, it's like the only big move they could really make is you trade Ohtani for Soto. That's the only thing that for me that would be fireworks worthy that they could possibly do.
It's going to be a very wild, I think, trade deadline this year. I think we're going to see more moves this year. I know everybody always says that, but I think based on the rumors and based on a lot of teams being very vocal within the weeks leading into the trade deadline, I think this will be a more busier trade deadline that I will say over the past 3 or 4 years, especially with the big names that could potentially go, like a Juan Soto, like a Shohei Ohtani, like, I don't know, a Frankie Montas, and Luis Castillo already got traded. So you have big names that are ready to roll, could be out of town. Who knows what can happen? That's the beauty of baseball. That's the beauty of the trade deadline, because you never know what's going to happen. But again, at the end of the day, welcome to the Angels. We are the conundrum of baseball. It's always a wild card. You never know what can happen, especially with Artie Moreno. But with the Angels right now, it's struggle per usual as they finish the month of July, losing 3 of 4 to the Texas Rangers and start the second half post All-Star break with a record of 4-7 overall, 43-59 here in 2022, 23 and a half games back in the AL West and 11 games back of the final AL wildcard spot that is currently being occupied by the Tampa Bay Rays, who are 54-48. Over the next 10 games, the Angels will have 6 versus Oakland, 4 versus Seattle, but within the next 48 hours, it is the trade deadline. Who will be here? Who will not? We will see what happens. You're going to want to follow Katella Chronicles on Twitter. That's at Katella_CHRON. Or, surprise, surprise, you can follow us on Instagram now. We have entered the Instagram universe with the same username at Katella_CHRON. So get all the trade deadline updates, all the Angels coverage, and especially all the Anaheim Ducks coverage as well in the coming days and months here, with the Angels season coming near a close, final 2 months, and the Anaheim Ducks season just around the corner in the fall. But I am your host, Dominick Lorenz, alongside my co-host, David Goodkind. David, thank you for joining us again. And
of course,
God, what's going to happen? I don't know. I want to have some predictions, I should say, but I don't think anything's on the bingo card anymore. And I think we just have to give up and just sit back. And
my prediction wouldn't be nice anyway. Let's spare the audience.
We should, let's spare the audience. The Angels have beat a dead horse enough this season. We're just commenting on it at this point. We got spicy early on in the season, and then we just said, if it's going to keep happening, I don't know how much spice the fans can take at this point.
Right.
But again, I'm Dominick Lorenz. That's David Goodkind. This is the Katella Chronicles podcast, episode number 5. Again, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the handle at Katella_CHRON. Don't forget, we are the heartbeat of pro sports in Anaheim. And until next time, I'm Dominick. That's David. And we'll see you along the way on Katella Chronicles.